Prior to the 19th century, the Arctic regions had not been explored with such determination and purpose until Sir William Edward Parry's failed attempt at reaching the North Pole in 1827. He set the record for the farthest north at 82 degrees north. The next major achievement in Arctic exploration was the first crossing of Greenland by Norwegian explorer Fridtjof Nansen in 1888. His crossing of Greenland ushered in a new age of Arctic exploration, led by Nansen himself, fellow Norwegian Roald Amundsen, and American explorers Matthew Henson and Robert Peary.
The race to the pole, peak of Arctic exploration. Fridtjof Nansen, Norwegian explorer and humanitarian, 1861 to 1930. Fridtjof Nansen was born October 10, 1861 near Christiania. Since childhood, he had a great love for the outdoors, which prompted him to study zoology at Royal Frederick University in 1880. In 1882, Nansen took a trip on the sealing vessel, the Viking, to study zoology, but he became polarized with the idea of crossing the Greenland ice cap.
Nansen became the first to cross Greenland in 1888 and wintered on the west coast until 1889. During the winter, he wrote a book on the Inuit culture. In 1890, Nansen planned to take a specifically designed polar boat from, or forward, to the east coast of Siberia. Nansen determined that if he locked from in the ice, currents would take it to Norway. They left Christiania on June 24, 1893. After a year and a half, on January 8, 1895, the Fram achieved a position of 83 degrees north, breaking the record for the farthest north. Nansen decided to commence a dog sledge journey to the North Pole with Hjalmar Johansen when the ship was at 84 degrees north. But they faced terrible conditions and turned back at 86 degrees north, the new record for the farthest north. Johansen and Nansen were rescued by British explorer Frederick Jackson on June 17, 1896 at Cape Flora, Franz Josef Land.
Fridtjof Nansen was an accomplished Arctic explorer, humanitarian, and oceanographer. He won numerous awards in all these areas, including the 1922 Nobel Peace Prize for refugee relief efforts after World War I. Nansen's most notable accomplishments in exploration were breaking the record of the farthest north and charting the Arctic Ocean. He died near Oslo on May 13, 1930.
Robert Peary was born on May 6, 1856, in Crescent, Pennsylvania. He joined the Navy in 1881, and while surveying a canal in Nicaragua, he met Matthew Henson, who was born on August 6, 1866, in Maryland. Henson became a cabin boy in Baltimore for the Katie Hines. Peary and Henson traveled to Greenland in 1893, but Norwegian Fridtjof Nansen had already crossed it, so the pair took sledges with dogs to the northern coast and concluded that Greenland was an island. Peary hired Captain Robert Bartlett to guide a specifically designed polar ship, the Roosevelt, to take a crew of 23 men as far north as possible. In 1909, Peary and Henson had a team of 6, including themselves and 4 Inuit men. They thought they had made it to the pole, but recent calculations of Peary's recordings have determined that he was between 60 and 5 miles away from the pole.
Robert E. Peary and Matthew Henson are considered American heroes, although they most likely did not attain the pole. Peary was given most of the limelight, as Henson only received support from the African American community until the later half of the 20th century. Peary died in Washington, D.C. on February 20, 1920. Henson died in the Bronx, New York on March 9, 1955. Many years after his death, Matthew Henson was reburied next to Robert E. Peary's grave. Roald Amundsen was born on July 16, 1872 in Bourges, Norway. When he was 15 years old, he was inspired by the accounts by Sir John Franklin on his attempt to go through the Northwest Passage. From then on, he spent his life preparing for his dream to follow in his footsteps. He began to increase his seafaring skills and eventually became first mate on a ship called the Belgica in 1897 that traveled to the Arctic. He got a skipper's license when he returned to Norway and started planning for his first expedition to the Arctic. He bought his first ship, Joa, in 1900. He set sail in 1903 with 6 crew members. They went through the Northwest Passage and around the coast of northern Canada. They made it to Cape California and stopped at Herschel Island in Yukon in 1905 due to ice preventing them from traveling further west. They resumed their journey in August of 1906 and later arrived in Nome, Alaska. He later sailed from the Madeira Islands to Antarctica in 1910. He arrived to the South Pole on December 14, 1911, and returned home the following year. In 1918, he sailed on the Maud to drift across the North Pole, but he had to later abandon the idea and instead reach the pole by plane. In 1925, Amundsen and Lincoln Ellsworth reached within 150 miles from the pole. In 1926, Amundsen, Ellsworth, and the Italian aeronautical engineer Umberto Nobile passed over the Arctic in the Norge. In 1928, Nobile crashed near Spitzenberg and Amundsen disappeared trying to rescue him. These four men made lasting contributions to exploration, especially through mapping, surveying, and charting. They each drove one another as Nansen's crossing of Greenland influenced Peary to survey the northern coast, while journeying through the Northeast Passage strongly influenced Amundsen to go farther north and east through the same passage. Peary's self-proclaimed attainment of the pole diverted Amundsen's attention to the South Pole, although he flew over the North Pole and is credited with being the first to visit both. Henson's assistance with Peary's North Pole expedition was not recognizable until the later half of the 20th century. Between all four men encompassed three races: a naval officer, two theoretical Vikings, and a part-time taxidermist. However, Peary, Henson, Nansen, and Amundsen all share a love for adventure and exploration.